And we get caught up in our mental interpretation of it and then moving forward with that as if it's true. And my argument is not that we can change the world. My argument is that this world is absolutely perfect. And it's our delusional thinking minds that imagine otherwise. And so how can we validate that for ourselves? Hello there, and welcome to Dharma Science Radio. My name is Ian, and I enjoy talking about the path of least resistance, the path of most allowance, the most joy, and the most consciousness expansion. And so for me, the primary system that has radically influenced the way I perceive the entire world has been human design. Lately, however, I've been listening to a source known as Abraham. This is an infinite intelligence channeled through Esther Hicks. And so essentially what I'm seeing there is someone who is channeling the non-physical world. They are channeling their own nature through themselves without mentally interfering, without creating resistance in their awareness to what they think. They're allowing their channels to communicate for themselves. And so what they're bringing about is this notion of the law of attraction. You may have heard of the law of attraction before, such as in that movie, The Secret, which was originally based entirely around Abraham and the teachings that they give. However, there's much misinformation around how the law of attraction functions. And as somebody who is deeply engrossed into the study of the mechanics of this vibrational reality, I have found myself enamored by the mental conditioning that Abraham has given me to ponder and to consider in my mind. They have given me a new framework with more open perspectives that I can then put to the test as a good third line and see what really sticks, see what really makes sense, and see what really makes a difference in this life. And so human design is all about mechanics. Human design is deeply about the no choice factor of life. This notion that, yep, you're born, you're going to go through your life, and you're going to get what you're going to get. And fascinatingly enough, Ra would say it is not deterministic. And so how do we have no choice without being deterministic? You know, this is a deep question worthy of pondering, worthy of considering how this is possible. And one nature of that is within something called the binary. So there is the dark matter, dark energy, non-physical. This is electromagnetic energy which exists outside of the visible spectrum. On one hand we have infrared, and on the other hand we have ultraviolet. Still electromagnetic vibrations, and yet they're not visible to our eyes. And in that realm, there is absolutely no choice. It simply is what it is. This is what goes beyond our ability to influence, really. This is the cathode ray tube of your television. This is the actual hardware that allows the software to function. And so on the other end of this binary, we have what's called the light field. And in this light field, we have awareness. And within awareness, we have choice. Now this is where I start to perhaps even begin to diverge a little bit from classical Ra-Uru-Hu and human design as he taught. For he deeply was a dualist, purely about the binary, the two, and purely about no choice. He didn't really like talking so much about the perception of choice. And personally, I've begun to take more agency on that front. I've begun to witness my experiment unfolding into the taking of aligned thought. For there is a dramatic difference between taking on thought that does not belong to you, identifying with it, and trying to live it out, the basic cause of suffering, along with resistance to what is. And on the other hand, there is taking on thought that is actually aligned to your specific vibration, taking on thought that is inspired directly from source to you or to me. And so by recognizing what thoughts are truly inspired, what thoughts truly resonate to the core of my inner being able to identify with that and take that as a thought and move forward with it, at least on the vibrational level within my personal awareness, has brought me great joy, in the sense that I have desires that will lead to fulfillment on this material plane. On a very general human level, desire is the root of the human experiential way. We call this the 41st gate in the root center, heading up along the right side of the solar plexus all the way to the 35 in the throat. All of this has to do with the stream of desire and the human experiential way. So it is fundamental to the nature of who and what we are as humans that we have desires. Abraham would say that the moment you discover something you do not like, I do not like the way that person spoke to me, there is a rocket shot off in the other direction into the vortex of your vibrational reality of what you do want. That's a contrasting experience. It's called step one, being able to discover what you do and don't want. Oh, I know I don't want that, which means I'm one step closer to being in alignment with what I do want. And it's the nature of this desire mechanism within the human being, within our thinking minds. And so there was this image I had produced a little while back to express some of what I've learned from Abraham. Excuse the crudeness of this drawing, I threw it together pretty quick. And so fundamentally what we're looking at here is actually the body graph from human design in a very different way. You see up here we have the head center, down here we have the root center, and then in the center of them all, near the middle, we have the G center and the ego center. And so I am calling all of these part of the ego self. And so this is where the real differentiation from classical human design begins, is with this image. Because here I'm saying part of the self and the ego nature of the self. This is the little self. This is the personal self. This is much more of the limited perspective on who I am and the pressures involved with that. Whether that be pressure from the root, this is pressure on the material plane, which drives for survival, which drives for stress. This is all about physical pressure. Up here in the head center, this is all about the pressure to conceptualize, to think about things in certain ways. And in the very middle here, we have the ego and the G center. And this provides a different form of pressure, I would say. I see this as being a very magical space to be. Down here in the G center and the ego, because the G center I have actually combined with the transcendental self and the ego self. And so what do I mean by that? Well, there's something called the magnetic monopole, which rests within this G center, and it holds us together in our hologram of separation, and it moves us along our line of geometry. Now see, that sounds very mystical. And that's because we're talking about a vibrational reality as primary. We're not talking about the physical world as the primary force here. We're talking about vibrations. So we have geometry within vibrations, and we have a hologram of separation. And so this ego self here, this pressure to prove one's worth or to receive validation, I see as deeply connecting to the transcendental self in the core of this G center. These two, I feel, very, very intimately are connected. It's as if the heart, the ego, is our little self. And then here in the G center, we have a connection to our transcendental self. And so what do I mean by transcendental self? Well, in this case, I'm talking about the sacral center, the G center, and the throat center. So we're speaking about what I would term as manifest reality up in the throat. We're talking about generated reality here in the sacral, and we're talking about the pure vibrational law of attraction here in the G center. And this is where learning from Abraham Hicks has dramatically influenced my mental cognition about what's going on here. Because this can be a person who's never touched human design, and yet they've recognized something that has resonated within me from the beginning of my life. Much like how human design revealed knowledge from my own past and my life of, oh, it's always been this way, and now I can see it clearly written down on a piece of paper. Abraham's teachings are very similar. They are a bit more broad scope, a bit more overreaching so that anybody can hear and hopefully take something from it, which is the ultimate benefit I've found from human design, is that it's very, 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 very specific to exactly you and your individual way of living. Whereas here in the law of attraction workshops, we're talking about much more overreaching, influencing everyone mechanics. And so the basic mechanic here with the law of attraction is that we're talking about a world where we are only attracting. There is no need to resist or to repel anything. For this here in the G center, this magnetic monopole, it is a monopole, meaning it only attracts. This divine jewel of attraction only vibrates in such a way as to pull in what is of your frequency, what is of your vibration, what resonates in harmony or dissonance to you. What resonates in harmony or in transference to you. And so by getting in touch with this fact that we are always attracting, no matter what you're doing, you are attracting reality as it belongs to you, at the frequency you're resonating at. And so according to Esther Hicks, this comes into the forms of thinking. Thinking is the key vibrational attraction mechanism from classical law of attraction. And there's something I have a little bit of disagreement about there. While I do believe deeply that what we're thinking is extremely important, I do not believe it is the number one primary attractive force for all human beings on the planet. For manifestors, for projectors, for reflectors, I think it's more important. I think it makes a bigger difference because you're amplifying the generated life force energy on this planet if you're not thinking in a positive way, in an aligned way to yourself. And even if you are amplifying the positive, it's my belief you can find a way to amplify the positive and to get the best of that without getting caught into negative thought loops and amplifying the negative of what is not preferred. And so back into this topic of what is the transcendental self. We see we have the manifest reality above, we have generated reality below, and we have pure vibrational frequency in the middle, holding it all together. These three energy centers actually make up what is called the penta, which is a transauric form, meaning this is a life form that is born out of the combination of at least 3 to 5 people being physically close to each other in aura. There is at that point an intelligence that is orchestrating those beings that are together in aura towards survival. You see, this is no longer about the little old me self and, oh, what do I care about? What do I feel about? What are my pressures in life? What do I need to prove? Or what do I need to let go of, for that matter? This is about the material reality. This is about the life forms. This is about the bodies. This is about a self bigger and more transcendental than only the little who I think I am. And so that's what I mean by transcendental, is that you put 3 to 5 of these people together and there is a form of self that is coming through that is greater than any of those individuals. And it's also very different. For you see, this penta does not pull everything of that which you are into its intelligence. It only pulls specific features from you that it is interested in for the survival on the material plane. And these are all the channels between those 3 energy centers. So we've touched a little bit on these first 2, on this ego self, this little person of who I think I am. Very similar to the personality side in classical human design. And then the transcendental self, which touches a lot more on the physical reality of the body and the world. So this is a little bit more like the design side in that sense. This is more like the physical body and how the bodies are interacting with each other. Lastly, we have the awareness centers. Here we have the spleen, here we have the ajna, and here we have the solar plexus. Now these are very different. I mentioned earlier about the light field of choice. This is where things radically change. This is where awareness comes from. For you see, in the ego self and in the transcendental self, there is no awareness. There is pure mechanical functioning. It is only from these 3 centers here, the spleen, the ajna, and the solar plex, that we actually have awareness originating from according to human design. And so this splenic awareness here, this is what we share with all the animals on planet Earth. This is awareness in the now, purely in this moment. Over here in the ajna, we have awareness of all time. You see, in the spleen, this is awareness in the now from my body, This connects with the animals, and the animals are concerned with their bodily survival. They have a personality crystal just like us. They're aware like you and I are. It's simply they don't have an ajna to create concepts and thoughts and words and communicate them. They do, however, have this awareness of their body in the moment. And that's what differentiated the 7-centered human, the classical human, from the animals, is that we had this ability to remember the past, imagine the future, and exist in the middle of it all with communication, with words, with terms. And the next step in our evolutionary awareness is this solar plexus becoming self-aware. And so depending on who you talk to and who you listen to, you might hear that this is fully ignorant right now still. That it is purely a corrupted motor that, well, don't listen to your emotions, basically is what they say. Don't listen to your feelings. Don't trust your emotions. Go back to rationality in your logical awareness. Weigh the pros and cons and be stoic. This is a classical teaching. And yet it is my awareness that since 1781, with the 9-centered projector evolutionary revolution, that now that there is the formulation of at least proto-awareness within the solar plexus. You see, the motor function of the solar plexus is still occurring, and this is why Ra would say it was corrupted as an awareness center, is because there is motor function occurring. So emotions can push us around without awareness, and we have to be with them over time as emotional authorities in order to achieve relative clarity, because this ignorant motor pushing things around gives no truth in the now for the emotionally defined solar plexus authority being. And that is very profound to have as an experience. It means that we feel very, very deeply, we feel very richly, depending on especially the channels involved, keynote the themes for how in which one is experiencing relative clarity. And the key here is that we are developing awareness around this emotional field. We are developing awareness, and what we do is that we wait for clarity. that allows us to expand our consciousness into greater horizons. And so science has already proven that within our brain, within our ajna, essentially, that we have this capacity for neuroplasticity. This means that our neurons in our brain, the connections, can actually connect and they can become stronger, and they can also disconnect. And you can, say, close down an old highway and rebuild in a new way. And you can have new thought form patterns that emerge. And in the brain, we have proven that this is a doable thing. And we've also discovered that there are neurons in the body beyond merely the brain. We found it in the heart. We found them in the gut. And so we've discovered this force of plasticity. And Ra himself has said that within the light field, we have what he called illusion of choice. Because the thing is everything here in this world of light, this world of gravity, this world of time and space, everything's changing. So it seems like we're making countless choices. Like I lift my hand up, I move my hand down, that's a choice. And then what we're doing here now, what I am interested in, is this thing called the vibrational reality. This is the primary root cause for the material physical plane. And so from this vibrational reality, we can see as the origin source of all things that come into manifestation. And so by tuning in with that vibrational awareness, we can get to the primary principle and work in much more efficient ways. Where you see, we get so caught up in this material world of how things actually happen, and we get caught up in our mental interpretation of it, and then moving forward with that as if it's true. And my argument is not that we can change the world. My argument is that this world is absolutely perfect. And it's our delusional thinking minds that imagine otherwise. And so how can we validate that for ourselves? It comes down to paying attention to your own thinking. What are you thinking about? Are you in alignment with your desires, with what you want in this life? Or did you formulate a desire? Did you say, I don't like that, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like this. As your vortex of desire expands, your inner being, your true self knows, okay, you don't like that, you don't like this, you don't like that, you don't like this. That means you like this, you want that, you like this, you want that, you like this, you want that. And as that vortex grows, filling with all of your desires, hopes, and dreams, are you living up to that? Are you moving towards those desires, hopes, and dreams in your life? Because if you're not, well, that's where pain comes from. That's where suffering comes from. That's where depression comes from. That's where unhappiness comes from. That's where basically all negative emotion comes from. Is the fact that your inner being is expanding with every moment, with every contrasting experience of what you do and don't want. And if you're not moving towards what you do want in each moment, then you might feel a little bit more down, a little bit more sad, a little bit more stuck in your old ways of, well, this is just how things work out. And my argument here today is that it's not the case. Is that, yes, we do have these 6 centers that are part of the transcendental and the ego self that have nothing to do with our choices in that sense. And we have these 3 centers here that are purely about awareness. This is about developing our awareness on this material plane. And where does that awareness come from? Well, it comes from the vibrational reality. It comes from this force within ourselves that is primary, that is the source of all things. For it is in the very center of me, and it is in the very center of you. It is in the very center, the origin source, the creative force that generates worlds, that manifests everything we see. It's contained within, and is at the very core and essence of our being. And so it is my belief that with our awareness, that we can learn to think in different ways through this neuroplastic function, that our brain can change neurons and we can formulate new pathways and roads of thinking, new grooves in our karmic line, that can then begin to attract forces to us that are in alignment with our inner being and true self. And so this is a whole gigantic topic. There is really a lot about this that I would like to unpack over time. There is so much that's going on here. For you see, many of us here on this planet are generator aura types. And so the purely thinking-based process, as described by Abraham, it's not quite the same for us generator types. You see, the vehicle that Esther was born with, according to what I've seen, is that of a environmental projector. So this is someone who has all the motors, everything down below the throat, undefined. Meaning that all those dimensions down there are amplification fields. And it seems what they found is that when they amplify the positive, they are attracting the positive into their life. When they amplify the negative, they are attracting the negative into their life. So there are many layers of manifestation and attraction that are going on here. Say I'm a generator aura type. That means that I have an inner yes-no mechanism. Yes, no. And if I get mentally hung up on my yes thinking that it's a no, or my no thinking that it's a yes, that's pure chaos. That is what we call crosstalk or cross-think. That is getting the energy switched up and not focused in alignment with the inner being. However, when I hear the yes from the inside, when I feel it from the inside and I go forward with that, that's who I am. That's what I'm here to do. And when I notice the no, when I, not for me, when I honor that, that's how I let myself move through space and time in a good way. You see, there's so much that's involved here. There are so many specific details and so many general overreaching principles that all I'm left with in this moment is the wish that you can experience positive thoughts within your mind, is that you can learn to pay attention to the subtle vibrations that are primary, which come before this physical generated reality, and learn to create from there. Learn to create from the primary principles. Learn to enter what is called the receptive mode, where we've already launched these rockets of desire simply by experiencing contrast in our lives. And then what we can do is we can meditate. We can breathe. We can be present in this life. We can let go of all that contrast. We can take no thought, get into alignment with who we are, and receive true thought. Receive valuable thought that is relevant in this moment. Not only all time, like it might be valuable for someone 1,000 years ago or 1,000 years from now. That we can receive thought that is truly valuable for the individual in this living, breathing, vibrational moment. And so that's my wish for you. There's still so much more that can be unpacked and communicated about this. My thoughts are not solid, I'm an undefined Ajna chakra, so I'll never be certain about these things. I'm simply exploring the field of concepts and communication around it. Truly, I believe, after listening to Abraham for some number of hours over these past weeks, that we can learn to see the law of attraction and human design in perfect congruence with each other. And I believe that we can live joyous lives. So I'm wishing you a happily ever after. Take care. Bye for now. If you have enjoyed the show, and would like to learn more about how all of this applies specifically to you, then kindly refer to the link in this video's description, Private Consultation. Here, we can dive into all of the details together in a recorded call. May your signature vibration of satisfaction, success, peace, and surprise find you in a good way.